Well, hello there, and welcome to Community Conversations. For some reason, the banner is having some trouble coming down here, so let me hold on. There we go. Y'all, it has been quite an adventure to get here with y'all this evening. So I am so excited to be here. It was supposed to be Ethan, and I'll give you kind of the rundown of that tonight because I know that we are always honest and authentic with y'all about how we are showing up tonight. So just excited to be here with y'all exactly as you are showing up tonight to Community Conversation. So my name is Katie O'Dunn. I am an ordained minister and an interfaith chaplain, and I have OCD. And I have the pleasure of running Community Conversations alongside my amazing partner, Ethan. It's always him, me, or both of us with y'all every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. And it's sponsored by Stick with the Ick, which is the faith and OCD community that I have the pleasure of getting to work with. So tonight we're going to be talking about actually our Stick with the Ick theme of the week, but I am just super pumped to kind of dive in with you all. So I'm going to go through kind of some quick disclaimers first. And hello, I already see Nathan and Spence and Ash and Deirdre. So good to see y'all. I will explain in just a second why my lighting looks weird and I'm in a different place, and you're going to hear all sorts of stories tonight. But first, want to start with some quick disclaimers for us tonight that this live stream is educational and is not intended to replace therapy. For treatment-related questions, please work with your provider or contact a local clinician. You can use the IOCDF's online resource directory at iocdf.org/find help to locate a trained clinician near you. And as I always like to say, if you have not used this resource in the past, if you have not checked it out, I highly, highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite resources in the community. Also want to note that the International OCD Foundation is not a crisis hotline. If you're in crisis or if you're ever feeling suicidal or unsafe, please call the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988. You can also access online at www.988lifeline.org. Go to your local emergency room or call 911. Finally, we want to create a safe space here tonight, as we do each and every Tuesday night. We want to be kind. We want to be respectful to everyone, because at the end of the day, we are all here together on this journey with OCD and the journey with this thing called life. So a note that this is being broadcast on several social media platforms and it's being recorded. So please keep that in mind as you comment respectfully and lovingly toward one another, because we're just here to support. That's what this is all about. So welcome. And I see Ethan in the chat here too. So Ethan kind of has internet right now. So y'all, oh, and I see my mother-in-law, Liz. Hi, Liz. So before, such a great OCD community. Yay. OCD. We are one OCD community. Ash, 10,000%. We're all here to support one another. So as we jump in, I'm going to let y'all know why I'm in a different space and why it's not Ethan as advertised, but Ethan is in the chat. So very uncertain day. Ethan and I were in Denver together advocating, and he was speaking at Exposure Palooza, which is a really, really neat event that's kind of all based around, you guessed it, exposures and getting to really lean into things that are challenging. And he gave this really amazing speech at the medical school at the University of Colorado, Anschutz. And it was just so fantastic. He was awesome. So we had a great time. And also, sidebar, while we were there, got enough to watch. Oh yeah, he has enough internet to watch, but not to stream. Yeah. So while we were there, we got to visit some beautiful places, which I'll talk about tonight alongside our theme. But this morning, we both flew out to different locations. He flew back to our home in Atlanta, and I flew to New Orleans, where I'm going to be presenting later this week. Some of y'all might know Dr. Emily Bailey, who is in the other room. And if you give her enough shout outs throughout the stream tonight, she may even make an appearance, but who knows? With all of that, Ethan got home from our trip to find that internet and all sorts of tech stuff was out in our house at home. So he was unable to do the live stream. He's kind of doing all sorts of stuff there. And I just arrived in New Orleans and getting settled with all sorts of kind of crazy adventures here already too. So if you see me sitting on the floor and all sorts of things, that is why. So my internet is a little shady here too, but we're gonna do it. Just got off a plane, and Emily did as well after lots of interesting travel right now. So we're just rolling with it tonight. So thank y'all for letting me kind of introduce where we are and how we're showing up imperfectly, which is how we like to encourage everybody to show up, just imperfectly and as they are. And Stacy, so good to see you, and Deirdre, and anybody else that I missed. Just so glad to see folks here in the comments. And honestly, after a pretty lengthy day, it is making my day to see all of the love and advocacy going on in the comments already. No, Emily Bailey didn't go to Rice. So you're thinking Callie Warner. So Callie went to Rice, but Callie and Emily and I are all really good friends who get to do a lot of work together in the community. Can we summon Emily Bailey like Beetlejuice? I don't know. Maybe if you say her name enough time. I've seen it twice. So maybe if we see it a third time, we can get her to come in here by the time it's done. Thank you, Ash. I'm doing great post-flight. Well, make sure they say it. Oh, Emily Bailey. she'll come say, oh yeah, there's a third time in the chat. There's an Emily Bailey. She's here.
I am an Emily Bailey.
So yeah. So you can stay. You can whatever you want to do.
Hard decision. Maybe I'll just pop in randomly.
Yeah, pop in randomly. That's totally fine too. But thank you, Ash. Yeah, usually I am also exhausted post-flight. And yeah, I'm happy to talk about anxiety and OCD that comes up with flying, because it does. Absolutely. Yeah. Emily, just so you know, people are giving you shout outs in the chat now. So
I just realized my chocolate melted on my bed.
she melted chocolate on her bed. Really, really tough. Yeah. If girl needs to go to sleep, totally understand. Yeah, thank you, Deirdre. I was going to actually lift that up later in the stream. So thank you for lifting up Edna Foa. And that I know that news is still pretty new in the community today. I just found out a little while ago too that she passed. She's kind of one of our foundational amazing leaders and humans in the OCD community. So I don't have a ton of information yet, just as much as what Deirdre just shared here, but I'm definitely sad and mourning alongside y'all tonight too with that. So we are, in her honor, going to continue to talk about OCD and treatment and advocacy, because in many ways, the reason that we're here doing what we do with treatment and with talking about ERP and stepping forward and getting better, it's because of her. So, so definitely going to be talking about that. And I'm not sure the exact time, Stacy, or if that was today or this week. I'm happy to share more when I know, but just alongside y'all in that too. So as we jump in tonight, and I am gonna get into any questions that y'all drop in the chat. So Ash, I'm gonna loop back to your question a little bit, because I do want to talk about flying and anxiety. I think this is super important. But I want to introduce what some of y'all might be familiar with as our Stick with the Ick theme of the week. And our theme of the week over in that community right now is getting stuck at the rumination station. And I'm curious, have any of you all ever found yourself at the rumination station with OCD? Now, I'll go ahead and say, in a support group earlier this week, we had a lot of fun with this. We were like singing about the rumination station. It kind of sounds like Schoolhouse Rock song and all kinds of stuff. But in reality, the rumination station is not that fun of a place. What we came to in the group on Monday is the fact that we talk so frequently about physical compulsions. Rumination station, yes. Yeah, Deirdre, I don't know. I've been having a lot of fun with that. There was actually the suggestion of me getting to wear like a train conductor suit this week and being like, whoop, whoop, all aboard to the rumination station. Ash, you ride that train too often. So many of us do, right? And that's really why I wanted to talk about it this week, because we know that compulsions are not just physical, right? And we often talk about physical compulsions. They're easier to see, so sometimes they're easier to point out. Oh, and if you don't see Deirdre's comments, Chris, it's because those are coming from Facebook. So we have comments on here that are both coming from Facebook and from YouTube, and then a few sprinkled in there sometimes from LinkedIn and Twitch and X as well. So that's why, yeah, different social network. So I see them all. So I'll try to highlight all of them so that no matter where y'all are watching from, you can see. But Nathan, you ruminate all the time. Yeah. So rumination is, can we not show them on the stream? Yeah. So there are so many that come through from different platforms. So we just highlight kind of different ones throughout, but they can't, unfortunately, because they're all different platforms. You can only see live the ones that you're in. Sometimes people get onto both Facebook and YouTube at the same time. I actually used to do that. So, but I'll try to highlight as many of them as I can throughout the night too. But with this theme, okay, so rumination station, I'm really thinking about mental compulsions more broadly, specifically rumination, because that's something that comes up a lot for me. It's something we talk about a lot in the community, but more broadly, we know that compulsions keep us stuck, right? That they keep us stuck in that OCD cycle. And that OCD tells us often, well, if you do this compulsion, right, you're going to feel better or you're going to be able to solve it. And we know that that is kind of a false promise that puts us back into that cycle. And you can see that really tangibly when you're doing a physical compulsion. But mental compulsions are invisible. For so many people, they don't know they have OCD because they don't even know they're doing compulsions because they're mental. And some of the common mental compulsions that we think of might be rumination, which might be going over something again and again and trying to figure it out or trying to get certainty or trying to feel finished with it, trying to tie it in a bow. You might be mentally reviewing or replaying events to check what happened or what you said or if you did something wrong. You might be mentally checking thoughts, feelings, intentions, or reactions. You might be reassuring yourself internally. I'll say this has always been a big one for me of, oh, but I would never do that. Let me think of all the reasons I would never do that, or that's not who I am. You might be neutralizing thoughts, canceling out a quote unquote bad thought with a good thought. I want to name thoughts aren't good or bad. They just are. But in our minds with OCD, we often kind of label them in that way. So there's so many different, I mean, we can go on and on and on. There's so many different mental compulsions, but rumination station, kind of a cute way to talk about it. And especially this idea of going over something in your head again and again, trying to figure it out, trying to get certainty, trying to feel complete. And I'm really curious for y'all, a train station meets the treadmill since it doesn't get you anywhere. Sarah, yes, this. Yeah, the rumination station is totally like at the end of a treadmill. And I love that. I was writing something in one of my posts about how we don't actually ever get to a destination, but this is so spot on. Like, oh gosh, yes. So I'm curious for folks, just in kicking off this conversation before we get into some of y'all's topics for tonight, what has your experience been with rumination or with mental compulsions more broadly? What mental compulsions do you find yourself doing? What does it feel like when you're ruminating? Are you able to catch yourself ruminating? How do you catch yourself ruminating? How do you come back to the moment? Anything that comes up for you around rumination, mental compulsions, I want to hear about it in the chat. So we can put some of these things up here and talk about it. And again, just to kind of highlight what folks are already saying. Yeah, Ash rides that train too often. And Deirdre, my rumination train never pulls into the station. It just keeps going and going. It's like the Energizer Bunny, right? And going and going and going. I don't know if that's a reference that people know. Yeah, some of us ruminate all the time. And again, Sarah, I'm just like, I love this. Train station meets treadmill since it doesn't get you anywhere. Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, I feel like the overlap with this and PTSD is huge since your brain gets stuck in the traumatic experience. I know that many folks have kind of been sharing about that this week too, and even the experience, whether we're thinking about rumination or mental review of those really challenging experiences from the past, and almost kind of getting stuck on loop with this. So this can be a huge component for folks where there's kind of an overlap here, right, with OCD and trauma. So thank you for lifting this up. Other experiences, I'm curious for for folks to share. What is your experience getting stuck at the rumination station? What does that feel like? Are there things that you find yourself stuck ruminating about? Are there particular topics? Are there particular themes? And I want to share a little bit about what this looks like for me. I will say mental compulsions for me have always been one of the more challenging things that I've navigated from an OCD perspective. It took me such a long time, honestly, to get better, even after finding the right treatment, was I was still engaging in mental compulsions, not knowing they were compulsions. Primarily, I was ruminating a lot. I was always at the rumination station. And so often I would engage in really challenging exposures and would really push myself, and then I would kind of do the response prevention, but then I would start to ruminate, which would mean I didn't fully do the response prevention, right? I was really doing a lot of those compulsions. And for me, even after doing an exposure, I spent a lot of time thinking, well, does that exposure mean that the fact that I did that exposure, does that mean that I have OCD? And does this mean that I'm still a good person? And am I still a good person? And would a good person have done that exposure? And what does that mean? And what does that look like? Oof. And it just kept me stuck, kept me so stuck in that cycle. And I think the same is true for so many. And I always think for me, I spent a very long time in my life kind of living two parallel lives. One where I was engaging in the world and I was out, and at the time I was in school chaplaincy, I was speaking, I was teaching, and then the other part that was in my head. And I'm not sure if folks relate to this, but it felt like there were two parallel lives for me running. The one that everybody could see and the one that everybody couldn't see. And it was exhausting, y'all. It was absolutely exhausting, because I spent all day on the outside saying like, hello, how are you? I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And inside, am I a good person? Can I figure out if I'm a good person? Can I try to solve this problem? Can I do this? Can I do that? So I think this can be really challenging. And I think also breaking out of that can be so challenging. And let's see. Yeah, it's like your flight getting delayed repeatedly when you're already in the terminal and you didn't pack any activities to do. So your brain has free reign to torment you. Yeah, Emily's in the other room. Emily feels personally targeted after her flight got delayed all morning. Yeah, that's absolutely. I actually don't know, Spence. I'm gonna call on Dr. Emily in the other room to see if she can speak to this. And if you can't, Emily, it's okay. Sorry, no pressure. Are you familiar with hypergraphia as a nexus between behavioral and mental compulsions? Yeah.
That's a word. Let me refresh myself. Hypergraphia.
She's going to refresh herself. Because Spence, I am not actually,
Compulsive writing?
I don't know. I'm actually not familiar with it. So I want us all to learn, because I always love on these streams, somebody always brings up something that I don't know about that I want to learn about. So y'all, thank you. Thank you for that. And know that if I don't know, I will always say that, and we'll always kind of learn it together. So, Dr. Emily's going to take a look at that, but thank you for bringing that up with us, Spence. Because I want to learn about it now. That's awesome. I resonated with your TikTok about being on the canyon and rumination taking away from it. Yeah. So Ash, this is what I was going to talk about. I think so often, or at least for me, a big goal was, I want to get back to my life and I want to do the things, right? I want to be able to go out. I want to be able to do the stuff. And that's wonderful, right? That's a fantastic goal. But then I think there's another layer that's like, well, what does it look like for us not just to be there physically doing the things, but to actually show up mentally and spiritually and emotionally? And I was thinking about this a lot when Ethan and I were in Colorado the last couple of days, where we're looking out at just these beautiful mountains, these beautiful canyons like Ash is talking about. And we're having these conversations about, well, are we here physically, or are we like really present? And what does it mean to show up and actually be present? And I'll say so many, I would say probably 90% of the really beautiful things that I did in my life prior to OCD treatment. I was there, but I wasn't actually there. And I want everybody here to know you so deserve to be not just there, but like there, physically, emotionally, spiritually, looking out at the canyon and actually able to take it in. And I think, you know, we can talk about what this looks like and skills and tools that are helpful for folks. But I think a really big step, whether it's rumination or a mental compulsion in any of its forms, I think it's noticing. It's noticing, wait, okay, I am kind of playing with this thought in my head right now. I'm turning it around and around and I'm trying to figure it out. And just to differentiate, we know that an obsession, an intrusive thought, that's kind of the automatic thing. It comes up. It's the what if. It doesn't have to be a what if, but it's the thing that just comes up. The compulsion is when we start to engage with that obsession, when we say, well, why did I have that thought? What does that thought mean? Let me think back to all these things in the past. Oh my goodness. Oh, and Darren, I'm glad you relate to rumination station. But yeah, as soon as we notice that we're playing with the thought or turning it around in our brain or anything like that, we have a really cool opportunity here. We have a really cool choice to both notice that and say, I want to do something different. I want to come back to the present. And this sounds, I'll say, really simple. And I used to get really annoyed when people would say this to me. But there's something really beautiful about saying, I notice that I'm doing this. Let me draw my attention back mindfully to the things that are going on around me right now in this moment. Now, I think the catch with this, and this came up in our group earlier this week too, is, well, what does it look like when your mind goes off again and again and again? What does it look like when you get another intrusive thought and then you find yourself ruminating on it all over again? Well, so we get to come back again. We get to notice that we're engaging in rumination and we don't beat ourselves up for it, right? We get to say, oh, I have OCD. Of course I'm ruminating. And I get to do something a little bit different right now. I get to make the cool choice, the brave choice to come back to the moment. Yeah, Sarah, I often get stuck ruminating when I feel like I've failed or let someone down or made a mistake. Yeah, I so feel this. And the irony is, I don't think the rumination actually gets us any closer to our values or to who we want to be and the things we want to do. It kind of reminds me of our conversations a few weeks ago on guilt and shame and how guilt can be, guilt in and of itself can be something that's helpful. And Kim Quinlan, I know on these streams, has said it's helpful for like 20 seconds when you've actually like maybe done something where you have 20 seconds of like, maybe I shouldn't do that again. Maybe I should do that differently. Beyond that, not helpful. And those of us with OCD often quickly jump from guilt to shame, even when we haven't done anything wrong, of not just saying I've done something wrong, but that must mean that I'm bad. That must mean that I'm a bad person. It means something inherently about me. And Sarah, the reason I'm tying this together is not to go down a whole nother station or my own rumination station, but I often get stuck ruminating when I've made a mistake, even if it's a really minor mistake, and I jump quickly from guilt to shame. And then I get stuck ruminating on the shame part. I get stuck ruminating on well, I must be bad. And what does this mean about me? And does this mean that I'm bad in every other context or every other area of my life? And does that mean that every other thing is true? The shame kind of, at least for me, gets all stuck around that rumination. And again, Sarah, it's so interesting because I hear you say this or I read you saying this and I'm like, well, you don't have to keep ruminating about it, right? We are human. You make mistakes, like, duh, you don't have to sit here and continue to play with it in your head or beat yourself up about it. But I know when we're experiencing that in our own lives, it's really tough. And I think the more we ruminate about it, the more it feels like, well, we have to keep ruminating or we have to keep trying to solve this when we don't. I'm glad other folks resonate with this too. Writing excessively. Okay, so this is going back to the hypergraphia piece. Writing excessively to fight anxiety in the case of OCD. It occurred with a number of other disorders. I'm thinking on paper or keyboard, hence the connection. Interesting, Spence. Super, super interesting. I will be totally honest. This is something I'm not familiar with, and I am going to end up doing a deep dive after our time together tonight. So I'm really glad that you brought this up and brought up something new for us. That's super, super cool. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And not, I don't mean cool in terms of, I mean, it's obviously challenging, and yeah, Emily's laughing at me now because now I'm having my own rumination about, oh, I don't want them to think that I think this is like cool in like a stigmatizing way. It's not what I mean. I'm going to sit with all of that discomfort. I just meant it's kind of neat to learn different presentations and the way that things show up differently for folks. But y'all, don't let me ruminate about this. Don't let me kind of loop back on this. What, Emily? Yeah, Emily will throw something at me if I keep going down this rumination station. Is it raining?
No.
What's that noise?
I don't know, Katie.
Y'all, we're in an interesting place. I will leave it at that. There's a lot of different things going on. We just got here. Okay. We will solve that. You hear that though? You hear it though? Okay, we'll solve that problem after. Okay, we're gonna sit with that uncertainty right now, y'all. Okay, so back to the rumination station. Okay, sometimes not sure if it's incoming obsessions or rumination or just constant obsessions incoming. Ooh, yeah. I think this is such an important nuance. And the way that I often talk about this is, again, an obsession is that initial piece that comes up. It's that initial what if, it's that initial intrusive thought. And the rumination is as soon as we start to do something with that obsession, as soon as we start to kind of play with it in our mind. And I think it can be really tricky because sometimes it can be hard to kind of pull those two things apart. She's going to kill me because she's here. So I'm going to ask her, Emily, how do you encourage your patients to separate obsessions from rumination, and separating out, well, is this rumination? Is this an obsession? So they said sometimes not sure if it's an incoming obsession or rumination or just constant obsessions incoming.
The shortest answer is, I feel like you just said this and I wasn't listening.
Oh, well, that's okay. Well, actually, I'm glad you weren't listening because we'll see if I said it right.
Yeah, I was totally doing data. So there's that initial thought, and I always have people like start writing the OCD cycle down. There's that initial thought, and then there's what you do with the thought.
That's what I said. Well, good. I'm glad it wasn't like the opposite of what I said. No, that's great. Keep going.
No, of course. So a lot of times I'll have people map out, okay, so the initial fear was like, what if I'm a bad person? Well, after that, you trying to figure out in your mind if you're a bad person.
Okay. No, keep going.
No, I think you said it all.
But what about,
how do I motivate them though?
Yeah.
I mean, I think part of the motivation is realizing what they're missing out on when they're engaged in that rumination, right? Are you missing out on the like side eye your friend just gave you?
Yeah.
Are you missing out on, an inside joke? Are you missing out on like a really beautiful scene in front of you? I think it's part of the motivation comes from what you realize you're losing in the moment, and you're not even solving anything. Like OCD makes you believe that you can solve it and have the perfect answer, but what it loves to do is ask questions that have no answer. And so you're never going to get there.
I love this second part too. And I think we hit this, but I think it's really the being able to differentiate when it feels like there's constant obsessions from constant rumination. Like, how do they know if it's different what if thoughts coming in, or they're ruminating about it, if it's hard to separate, or does it even matter?
So part of me wonders, like, if it's the same question just phrased differently.
Yeah.
I feel like OCD has a way of being like, this is a new question. And it's like,
Yeah.
No, you just asked that 5 minutes. So like sometimes it can feel like new questions, but it's getting at the same issue or the same core fear.
Oh, that's totally true. Because what if I'm a bad person? So I could say these are two different obsessions. What if I'm a bad person? And what if Emily's mad at me for being a bad person? But it's actually just,
then what is the root of it?
It's the same obsession.
Yeah. Like, what if I'm bad?
Yeah.
And maybe what if I hurt Emily or something?
Oh my gosh, she has to spend the next 5 days with me. What if I hurt her? Oh, it's awful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all I was needed for. Okay.
You can say. I know you're doing data. No, I just know you're doing data. Okay. Sarah says, it reminds me of picking at a scab where I compulsively come back to it and just can't stop picking at it. Yeah, absolutely. We just get stuck picking at that scab. Absolutely. Even though it's really painful. With my preaching class, I was talking with my dad about what I posted in my class discussion. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay. Oh, okay. Here we go. It goes down further. Okay. So I'll loop down to that in a second. I finished the other half of a lot of conversations in my mind as I assume people hate me or judge me on those slip ups. Sarah, I've said it before and I will say it again. We are so freaking similar. And I think that's been one of the toughest things for me throughout my life and even in recovery. Is my default is they must hate me, right? Like somebody, they must hate me because I made that mistake. Like they must be holding me to this standard because I'm me, right? Like I can't make that mistake. So I do a lot of the other half of conversations in my mind. And I think this is such a great example with the rumination station too, is to kind of catch yourself in that, which is so hard of like, am I having a conversation? Is the person in front of me right now? Do I need to be having this conversation? Is this helpful? Did this actually happen? Do I have evidence here? Because sometimes we end up just going through the whole conversation and beating ourselves up for just because OCD says we should. Yeah. Yeah. Chris talking about how Jesus used hyperbole and parables to wake up those who were harming the marginalized. And I talked about how a parable Jesus said seems to show that Jesus is telling people that they're going to hell for not serving the poor, codependence and abuse. And I was saying how the poor can do that. My dad mentioned that it can be hard when we're saying negative things. And I responded that it doesn't mean that he doesn't love. It doesn't mean that he doesn't love them. It just means he would point out to them. Yeah. So the parable means that God loves all people unconditionally and unrelentingly. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Let's see. Where's the other? Okay. I want to make sure I hit on our questions here. With those with pure O, is that the right terminology? Have these be one in the same kind of, so when folks in the community talk about pure O, their pure O is a way of saying purely obsessional OCD. And then they often explain kind of further that, well, it's not really purely obsessional. It's really a way for community to be able to find each other when there isn't a physical compulsion. So pure O, when we talk about that, it's really any type of OCD where you can't see a physical compulsion taking place. Now there is a compulsion taking place that just happens to be in our minds. So there's always this kind of neat learning piece after that. But that is kind of absolutely what we're talking about here, where those compulsions are mental instead of physical, where it's not something that you can actually see. Yeah. Okay. Let me see if there's other questions. Yeah, I mean, I think there are lots that could be maladaptive daydreaming, also heavily connected with OCD. I think going back to even what Dr. Bailey was saying a second ago, I think there can be, we can name things in lots of different ways. I've even had conversations with folks in the community this week about what's rumination and what's not, and what are mental compulsions and what does that look like. And I've had the pleasure of working as a chaplain on some cases where maladaptive daydreaming was kind of seen as compulsive. And I go back to this concept that anything can be a compulsion. And I always like to say that it isn't about the thing. And specifically as somebody who works with scrupulosity and works in the faith space, I would never say like prayer is always compulsive, right? That's not the case. It's about what the function is of the particular thing that we're engaging in. So we can ask that WTF, what's the function question, about really anything that we're doing. And we can say, well, am I doing this from a place of meaning and connection and values? Or am I doing this from a place of fear or guilt or shame or anxiety or in response to something that's urgent? And we can ask the same thing with maladaptive daydreaming. Are we trying to solve a problem? Does this feel really urgent? Are we trying to replay something? Or are we trying to look ahead and like fix something that hasn't been solved yet? Are we trying to get out of the discomfort in our current state? And again, thinking about what that function is and even talking with your therapist about that can be a really beautiful thing. Yeah. And you just highlighted really beautifully what me and Dr. Bailey were saying. Obsession is the intrusive thought stuck on repeat. Rumination is the thought and ritual and compulsion that tries to combat the thought and anxiety. The repetition of one primes the repetition of the other. Yeah, absolutely. It's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And it's often when we look at the OCD cycle, kind of this idea that, well, when we're engaging in compulsions, right, we end up kind of going back again and starting often with another obsession or that same obsession in a different way. Yeah. Thank you for sharing about the 12 steps too, Peter. Appreciate that. And Chris, amen, Chris. I know that that this is not a particularly religious space, so I'd say for anyone across traditions, I think this applies that yeah, you are so worthy of love. Everybody is so incredibly worthy of love. And Chris, like you highlighting this, I often think about and folks in Stick with the Ick hear me talk about a lot the idea of loving our neighbors as ourselves. That we are not just called to love our neighbors, we're also called to love ourselves as a part of that. It doesn't say love your neighbors in the same junky way that you happen to love yourselves. No, there's this dynamic of needing to love ourselves in order to love others. And it's not like we were, created as perfect beings. We make mistakes and we're still loved in that. And I always think, across traditions, there's different concepts of creation and what that looks like, whether it's being molded out of clay, but it's through this lens of love. And we're deserving of that. Doesn't mean that we have to be perfect. Doesn't mean that we have to get it right all the time. That makes me think of the Dumbledore quote. It does not do well to dwell on dreams and forget to live. Yes. So this could so be our quote for Rumination Station Week. I mean, just 10,000% because think about getting stuck all the time and not actually getting to live in or experience our life. Avoiding thing that could become compulsive is compulsive avoidance. Yes, Ash. Okay, so this is such an interesting nuance too. And I've actually heard this from folks recently of, well, I don't want to go and do that thing because I'm afraid that it's going to become compulsive. So they avoid the thing altogether. And it's like, well, let's at least do the thing. If it's value driven, if it becomes compulsive, we can address that. You can talk to your therapist about that. But I've heard that even from folks with skills and tools. I talked to somebody recently who said, okay, my therapist gave me this new tool that's really helpful, but I'm scared to use it because what if it becomes compulsive? Y'all, OCD is such a jerk. It's tricking you into not even using a tool that your therapist gave you in case it becomes compulsive. And that in and of itself, as Ash is telling us, becomes compulsive avoidance. Yeah, I think, so Chris, the idea that God or that other people don't love us, I think is such a common piece, with OCD, and I think also beyond as humans, we also often question ourselves and if we're lovable. But I think for folks with OCD, there's this whole additional layer. And I know we often talk about the fact that we put ourselves on a pedestal, not in the good way, but on the way of we have to be perfect and we have to hold ourselves to a different standard than everyone else. And I think often, because so many of us with OCD are so hard on ourselves and really struggle to love ourselves. And many of us have a core fear of what if I'm bad, then it's really hard to imagine that other people could love us too, or that God could love us. And that doesn't mean that that is true at all. Sometimes I think we take the way that we see ourselves and we imagine, well, other people must think that about me too. I'll say, Chris, I've felt totally unlovable like my entire life. And I've realized later in life that that's a distortion. And I think one of the biggest exposures for me in treatment was stepping forward with the idea that maybe I am deserving of love. Maybe I can actually even like myself a little bit. Like, whoa, that feels scary. Maybe I can step forward as if I like myself a little bit. Some of y'all know that's why I started wearing pink. I felt like I couldn't for a long time. I didn't want to do anything that made me smile or made me happy because I felt like I just didn't deserve it. And I started wearing my favorite color again as an exposure. And it was kind of an act in some ways in a response to Chris, what you're saying of being able to, I don't know, offer love for myself and think that maybe I'm worth something. Thank y'all so much for sharing this. Let's see. And I'm going through some of the questions. I do see some medication questions here on a couple different platforms. And those, I would encourage you to come back for Ask the Experts. Tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern, Chris Tronston is on. And I'm not sure when the next time he has a psychiatrist on, but he usually will have a psychiatrist on to answer those questions. So you can drop those to him too. Okay. Oh, good. Hi, Lydia. And hi, Phyllis. And I love kind of all of the, yeah. And there's this dynamic of sometimes it feeling like we put ourselves on trial. Yeah. So with OCD in particular, let me drink some water here. A little thirsty. It is like, yes. And Spence says it's like a cross-examination. I love the idea that when we are in an OCD spiral, it's like we are playing every single part in Law and Order. We are on trial personally. We're also the judge. We're also the jury. We're also the prosecutor. We're also the defense attorney. We're doing all those things, right? As we try to negotiate in our brain, it's we're saying, you must have done this. And then we're also saying, but here's why I couldn't have done this. But here's why I could have. Oh, and I feel bad about it. We're all the things. And I always go back to Shala Nicely, always used to tell me this. And I think this is a really, really great piece of advice. She said, leave the courtroom. Like, stop being a part of this case. As soon as you find yourself in the midst of that, your only job is to leave the courtroom. And of course, you can use your skills and tools to do that. You can use your non-engagement responses and all sorts of things. But again, leaving the courtroom, not continuing to engage in the conversation can be such a beautiful, awesome thing. Yeah, we're also the crowd, the security guard, the gavel, the Bible. Yeah, all of it. There's so many different analogies where we can think about this. And I would encourage y'all to think about what resonates for you. And if the courtroom piece sticks out for you, what does it look like for you to leave the courtroom? Now, I think I've hit most of the questions I want to go back earlier because I know we had a question here about travel and anxiety. And of course, if folks have other questions about things not related to this topic, please drop these in here too, because I want to make sure to hit on those in the last 15 minutes. So if y'all just want to share how you are or what's going on for you or any questions you have, would love to hear those too. But I do want to go back to Ash's question from earlier on. How do you navigate any anxiety or OCD that comes up with flying, if it does for you? Yeah, so this is such a great question. It didn't used to. And the interesting thing, I'm like, is this triggering for me to say? But you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and say it because if it is, maybe a little bit of an exposure for folks too. So I'm sorry. I guess little warning. I had a bad flight experience. And I had never worried about flying up until that, which is interesting because I actually have a mom who doesn't fly. My mom is terrified of flying. I grew up my entire childhood riding on trains instead of planes because my mom was just deathly afraid of flying, and rightfully so. She actually had a much worse experience than me, where she had an emergency landing when they lived in Asia, and it was really scary. So she ended up not wanting to fly anymore once they moved back to the US. But I never really had any issues with it, even though I was kind of watching my mom in that dynamic. So a couple of years ago, when Ethan and I flew out to LA to film the OCD awareness commercials, 2 of our tires in the plane popped on landing. And thankfully, we had a really just awesome female pilot, and she navigated the plane in, and we were totally okay, but we got, escorted off by firefighters and all sorts of things. And looking at the plane was really terrifying. And since then, and I would say this is more kind of in the anxiety camp, I have a lot of anxiety around particularly landing. And I always kind of give myself compassion for that because it's like, well, rightfully so. I had a really challenging experience. And I'm really mindful and conscious that I'm not going to let that impact the things that I do or that I want to go out and do, that I'm going to continue to do everything that's meaningful to me. So I think navigating that for me, I guess, is twofold. It's giving myself compassion as opposed to beating myself up and saying, why do I feel like this? It's like, no, of course you feel like this. And also, it's continuing to step forward and making the choice. I guess, and this is where some of the OCD pieces come in, where then I start to sometimes catastrophize about like, well, what if all 4 tires blow out? Or what if this, or what if that happens on landing? And as soon as I start to go to that place, to be able to recognize, maybe I don't have to have this mental dialogue right now. Maybe I can come back to the moment. Maybe I can listen to my music on the plane. Maybe I can work. Maybe I can let some of those thoughts be there. Let some of that anxiety be there. I'll say, especially right now, there's so much going on, I know, in the news and in different parts of the world. And I think even with TSA lines right now, this can feel super anxiety provoking, and there might be anxiety coming up. There also might be OCD dynamics coming up for folks, and just want to normalize that's okay. And those things can exist. And I really believe that we can still travel and do all of the things that we want to do. So just want you to all know that you are so worthy of that. Okay, wait, let me find kind of the bottom here to see if there are any more questions. Phyllis too. Yeah, it's difficult for me to accept love, even from those I love most. Yeah. I never thought of what you said before, that since we are harsh with and see ourselves that way, we believe that others see us in the same way. But through treatment, you've learned this was a distortion. Yeah. I mean, Chris, this was this took me a long time to even recognize, because in my mind, for most of my life, it was like, I don't know why this makes me little, but yeah, in my mind, it was just because I sucked, right? In my mind, it was just, well, of course everybody hates me because I suck, or I'm different, or I'm this, or I'm that. And yeah, it took a long time to recognize that wasn't actually what people were putting on me. It was the way that I assumed they saw me because of how I saw myself. So Chris, I mean, I think there's something really beautiful and different here, is to be able to say, maybe that's a distortion. Maybe we can actually look around at the people who are in our lives, and a lot of times they're actually showing us something that's a little bit different from what our brain is saying that they think of us. Yeah, Sarah, my travel fears often have a lot to do with germs and contamination. Yeah, and I think that is so common with travel, and especially post-COVID, right? Also, TSA always makes me feel worried a weapon or drugs will magically be in my bag despite never having either of them. Sarah, again. Sarah, like Emily, I don't know if I've shared with you that this is a fear of mine. I don't know if you were even listening, so never mind.
No, I was. I got stopped today at TSA, and they're like, I need to look at your shirt.
Your shirt? You're wearing a Thomas Red shirt.
And then they were like, boots, and then they let me go through. I was so panicked.
Oh, I get okay. So I think there is a normal human part of just getting panicked in the TSA line. Yeah. But no, I mean, this is my study is a sample size of 1, but, Sarah, I will say this has been a fear for me forever, that somehow I've never had a gun in my entire life, but that my bag is going to go through and they're going to find a gun in my bag, or drugs. Also have never done drugs, and like it's going to get pulled. So today, Ethan always tells me that I look really sketchy. I don't think you've seen this. I look really sketchy because I sit there and wait for my bag to go through, and I get so excited when it comes out and it doesn't get pulled. And I'm always like, yes. He's like, that looks so shady. It looks like you have really sketchy stuff, but I'm just really excited that nothing appeared in it.
Well, you're just an excitable person.
I'm also very excitable. Sarah, 10,000% agree with this. I need treatment to help me with this, though I'm learning as I give myself compassion too. Yeah. And I think it's a journey, and the self-compassion that we do alongside treatment is so important. Yeah, I mean, so I think this can look, of course, different for different people who are experiencing different things. But for me, yeah, ERP was honestly huge, and doing self-compassion work alongside ERP and even ACT and kind of values work. But a big core piece for me was really leaning into ERP and being able to make the OCD smaller so that it wasn't the screaming kind of voice constantly telling me that I was awful, or that if it was, I had the tools to not listen to it. So I think stepping really into that and then continuing with the self-compassion work I know that you're doing is so awesome. On a plane, I have to sit by a window. The less left to my imagination, the better. But I also enjoy the view. Ethan's like that too. Ethan is very much a window seat person. Yeah, I think it's interesting. So today I was sitting in the window seat. I usually sit in an aisle seat. And it was actually more anxiety provoking for me because I had to go to the bathroom and I didn't want to bother the person next to me. And it turned out, I haven't told you this yet, she was on crutches. So I was like, I really don't want to bother her, but I did because I was like, I have to pee and I'm not going to let moral scrupulosity stand in the way of me peeing. So I made the person with crutches move. You're welcome. Sarah says, I love that Emily Bailey is there to step in for all of us to give you a hug. Thank you, Emily.
Of course.
Yeah. And what Chris is saying too with it's really hard to believe in God's love or others' love. When we've heard shame-based messages from others or experienced religious trauma or, trauma or adverse religious experiences or adverse any experiences, right? That's also really hard because I think sometimes that can collide with OCD. And I'll say I'm working through kind of some of my own things with that right now with narratives that I heard in the past. So we can do that together. And thank you, Liz. My mother-in-law says good for me that I made the person with crutches move so I could pee. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, y'all. Any final thoughts or questions these last 5 minutes? I'm curious. Any other thoughts? This rumination piece, I so appreciate folks just kind of spending time also just to kind of think about this and talk about this. And I would really encourage folks to continue to think about what does it mean to be stuck at the rumination station later this week. I guess, because we usually have a few more questions here. I am going to end by, it's all about the old Twilight Zone episode where the ice monster, Phyllis, I think about this all the time where the ice monster appears on the plane's wing. Oh my gosh. I was thinking about this on the plane today. Did you watch Twilight Zone? Yeah. No, Emily's like, no, we don't know what you're talking about. Phyllis, every flight, I look out in the wing and I'm like, is the monster from a Twilight Zone going to be there? Am I going to have to convince people that he's there? Phyllis, love that. I love that reference. Thank you, Chris. Chris says, we love you, Katie and Emily. We love you too, Chris. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Do something fun while you're in New Orleans. Yes, we will. We are presenting on Thursday at the Southeastern Psychological Association, but we also plan to do fun things. We literally just got here. And we plan to eat fun food and go on ghost tours.
Yay!
I don't really know what the fun things are yet, but we're going to do fun things. So thank you for that. And Liz, I'm glad you remember the episode too. Yeah. Oh, Lydia, that's so awesome. I moderated my first Australian-based OCD support group 2 nights ago. Huge exposure for me. That's fantastic.
Yes. You'll have to tell me all about it.
That's
Also,
awesome.
Lydia.
Yay. Awesome. Thanks, Lydia. Okay. Last question. Good question, Sarah. I'll make Emily answer this one with me too. Is spiraling about current events in our world, does that fall under the banner of rumination?
Am I supposed to answer right now?
Yeah, I mean, you have to answer on the spot. That's what this thing is.
Go first.
Oh, I can.
No, it's fine. No, I already well, it's kind of like what I texted you about the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's normal to spiral about things that are happening in our world and be distressed about things that are in our world. And there's a point where we have to notice if it's impacting what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And I always bring up the worry tree. It's the lamest thing, I feel like, saying that name. I don't know if that's actually the title of it, but that's what I've called it. It's like I create this worry tree and it's I divide the branches into questions or things that I can solve and things that I can't solve. And so all of the things that I solve, I'm like, okay, what are the steps that I'm going to take to solve these worries or these problems? But then I get to world events and I'm like, whoa, I can't do much here. So how can I spend my energy? Maybe I could volunteer. Maybe I could do different things to help a cause, right? But ultimately, does it serve me to spend energy worrying or continuing to worry? I don't know. I don't know how you received that, because I was like on you that day.
Oh yeah, you were. No, I think I received it well. I think
I literally was like, I'm not anxious at all.
Yeah, no, I forgot. Yeah, because I was like, oh my gosh. You know, I think Sarah, it makes sense that folks with OCD are maybe spiraling about world events right now, and I think it makes sense for anybody who's human and who cares about people and just all of the things. And I always think, you know, I never want to encourage anyone to make their empathy or their compassion smaller, because I think that that's what makes everybody so beautiful. And I think it does start to fall under rumination, where we're consistently, kind of as Emily said, trying to solve problems in our mind that we can't solve. And I'm really big on again, actionable things that we can do, and things that are meaningful to us, that don't become compulsive and begin to kind of take away our lives. So for me, sometimes that might be volunteering, but it's not sitting and trying to solve problems in my head or trying to predict if something bad's going to happen or if I can keep people safe, because I can't. I've tried that my whole life, and unfortunately, engaging in rumination in my brain doesn't keep the people around me safe. It actually just moves me away, even more further away from them, if I can find my words tonight. But no, Sarah, I think that's definitely something that I would love to continue to kind of think about and talk about too, because it's hard. And I think it's hard for everybody right now. And I also, even with media and things like that, I think it's really important to be able to recognize that, of course, you want to stay informed and you want to be plugged in, and folks should. And we don't have to do it in a way that's compulsive, that ends up impacting our health, so that we can't plug in other ways with the world. So yeah. Thank y'all. I'm glad that felt helpful. And Phyllis, we are not staying at a hotel. We are actually staying at an Airbnb right now. So
I don't know if that was a good choice or not.
We're uncertain if that was a good choice, which is partially why I got on a little bit frazzled. But it's okay. We're centered. We're living in the uncertainty. We'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll just figure it out.
It's good. We're good. And we're getting ready to go get food right now, actually, after this live stream. So TBD. As we close out tonight, I do want to remind you that tomorrow is Ask the Experts with Chris Tronston at 12 p.m. Eastern. So plug in here, especially with some of those clinical questions that y'all were asking. And also want to note that the IOCDF is a donor-supported nonprofit organization. So we would love to have you please consider making a donation at iocdf.org/donate, so that we continue to have awesome programs like this. Also want to note that this community conversations and every Tuesday night is sponsored by Stick with the Ick, our inclusive faith and OCD virtual community. And if you enjoyed talking about this theme tonight and would like to continue to plug in with other awesome Icksters, we'd love to have you join us either at faithandocd.com, where you can learn more about it, or stickwittheick.com, where you can make a profile and plug into the community. So thank y'all so much for being here with us tonight. Optimistically uncertain is the word I want to leave us on tonight. Yeah, that is how I think we're feeling about our arrangements here in New Orleans right now.
I don't know that I'm optimistic. I don't know that. I feel like you are optimistic. I am cautiously concerned.
Emily was already like, should we stay somewhere else? I'm optimistically uncertain. We're going to try it for tonight, y'all. So we will.
Cautiously uncertain.
Cautiously uncertain. Yeah. Uncertain optimism. Wait, Zach, you just joined us. Zach, you came in at the end here, man. Pay Katie's mortgage, Zach. Zach. Zach, I was so glad to see you here tonight, even at the end. And what part of town are we in?
I couldn't tell you.
I
think we're near Canal Street.
Yes.
Or something like that. I know there's big streets that we are near.
Mm-hmm.
Question mark as to that if that's actually right.
Yeah.
I
uncertain.
Who
uncertain.
knows? Yeah.
Uncertain. But thank y'all so much, and thank you for leaning into uncertainty. Emily, any final, as we say goodbye, final words of wisdom?
Final words of wisdom? No, not really. I hope you all have a beautiful night and you choose to do one thing that OCD says you shouldn't.
I think that's great. And I hope that if you find yourself stuck at the rumination station, that you choose to lean into one of your skills and tools and I don't know, just do something different, because you are so deserving of actually showing up in your life emotionally and spiritually, as opposed to just physically. So we'll see y'all next time. Thank you so much. And thank you, Liz. Good to see everybody. Bye. Oh, wait, hold on. Oh, hold on. I just saw toot, toot. Yep, leaving the rumination station. Toot, toot. Hold on. I forgot that I need to put up the end live stream thing. Hold on, y'all. Wasn't prepared on this computer.